Eugene Andrew. Eugene Cernan is a former American naval officer and aviator, electrical engineer, aeronautical engineer, fighter pilot, and NASA astronaut. He launched into space 3 times, as pilot of Gemini 9A in June 1966, as lunar module pilot of Apollo 10 in May 1969, and as commander of Apollo 17 in December 1972, the final Apollo lunar landing. On Apollo 17, Cernan became the 11th person to walk on the Moon and the last man on the Moon, since he was the last to re-enter the Lunar Module Challenger after the mission's third and final extravehicular activity. Cernan was also a backup crew member for the Gemini 12, Apollo 7 and Apollo 14 space missions. Biography. Early years. Born on March 14, 1934, in Chicago, Illinois, son of a Slovak father and a Czech mother, Cernan grew up in the suburban towns of Bellwood and Maywood. Graduating from Proviso East High School in Maywood, class of 1952, he entered Purdue University, where he became a member of Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering in 1956, and was commissioned as a U.S. Navy ensign through the Naval Reserve Officers Training Corps at Purdue. He became a naval aviator flying FJ-4 Fury then A-4 Skyhawk jets in the attack role. He received a Master of Science degree in aeronautical engineering from the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School in 1963. Cernan was a Boy Scout and earned the rank of second class. His hobbies include love for horses, sports, hunting, fishing, and flying. He has logged more than 5,000 hours flying time, with more than 4,800 hours in jet aircraft, and over 200 jet aircraft carrier landings. NASA career. Cernan was selected among the third group of NASA astronauts in October 1963 by NASA to participate in Projects Gemini and Apollo. Project Gemini. Cernan was originally selected as backup pilot for Gemini 9 with Thomas Stafford. When the prime crew was killed in the crash of NASA T-38A-901 at Lambert Field on February 28, 1966, the backup crew became the prime crew. Gemini 9A encountered a number of problems. The original target vehicle exploded during launch, and the planned docking with a substitute target vehicle was made impossible by a protective shroud failing to separate after launch. However, the crew performed a rendezvous that simulated procedures that would be used in Apollo 10, the first optical rendezvous, and a lunar orbit abort rendezvous. Cernan performed the second American EVA, but overexertion due to lack of limb restraints prevented testing of the AMU and forced the early termination of the spacewalk. Apollo program. Cernan is one of only 3 humans to voyage to the Moon on 2 different occasions, one of only 12 people to walk on the Moon and the only person to have descended towards the Moon in the lunar lander twice. Apollo 10 holds the world Moon record for the highest speed attained by any manned vehicle at 39,897 km per hour during its return from the Moon on May 26, 1969. Cernan turned down the opportunity to walk on the Moon as lunar module pilot of Apollo 16, preferring to risk missing a flight altogether for the opportunity to command his own mission. He was publicly critical of the decision by NASA to send a scientist Schmidt to the Moon, a decision that meant that original lunar module pilot, Joe Engle, never got to walk on the Moon. However, in Cernan's words, Schmidt proved a capable LM pilot. 8 months later Cernan was selected as commander of Apollo 17, the final lunar landing. While on the Moon in December 1972 during Apollo 17, he and his crewmate Harrison Schmitt performed 3 EVAs for a total of about 22 hours of exploration of Taurus-Littrow Valley. Their first EVA alone was more than 3 times the length Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin spent outside the LM on Apollo 11. During this time they covered more than 35 kilometers using the lunar rover and spent a great deal of time collecting geologic samples that would shed light on the Moon's early history. Cernan piloted the rover on its final sortie, recording a maximum speed of 11.2 miles per hour, giving him the lunar land speed record. As Cernan prepared to climb the ladder for the final time, he spoke these words, currently the last spoken by a human standing on the Moon's surface. Bob, this is Gene, and I'm on the surface. And, as I take man's last step from the surface, back home for some time to come but we believe not too long into the future I'd like to just what I believe history will record. That America's challenge of today has forged man's destiny of tomorrow. And, as we leave the moon at Taurus litero, we leave as we came and, God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Godspeed the crew of Apollo 17. Cernan's distinction as the last person to walk on the moon means that Purdue University currently holds the distinction of being the alma mater of both the first person to walk on the moon, and the last. Post-NASA career On July 2, 1974 Cernan was a roaster of Don Rickles on the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast. In 1976, Cernan retired from both the Navy and from NASA, and went into private business. In 1999 he published his memoir The Last Man on the Moon with co-author Donald A. Davis, covering his naval and NASA career. He has been featured in space exploration documentaries, such as In the Shadow of the Moon, in which he stated, "Truth needs no defense, and nobody can take those footsteps I made on the surface of the moon away from me." Cernan also contributed to the book of the same name. Cernan was a contributor to ABC News and its Good Morning America morning show. On May 13, 2010, Cernan and Neil Armstrong testified before U.S. Congress in opposition to President Barack Obama's cancellation of the Constellation program, initiated during the Bush administration as part of the vision for space exploration to return humans to the Moon and later to Mars, but later deemed underfunded and unsustainable by the Augustine Commission in 2009. Organizations. Cernan is a member of several organizations: Fellow, American Astronautical Society. Member, Society of Experimental Test Pilots. Member, Tau Beta Pi, Sigma Xi, Phi Gamma Delta, and the Explorers Club. Awards and honors: Navy Astronaut Wings, Navy Distinguished Service Medal, twice, Distinguished Flying Cross, National Defense Service Medal, NASA Distinguished Service Medal, NASA Exceptional Service Medal, International Space Hall of Fame, U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, Slovakia, Grand Officer of the Order of the White Double Cross. In popular culture, Cernan was featured in the Discovery Channel's documentary miniseries When We Left Earth, The NASA Missions, providing narrative on his involvement and missions as an astronaut. In the 1998 Primetime Emmy Award-winning HBO miniseries From the Earth to the Moon, he was portrayed by Daniel Hugh Kelly. His recollections were the basis of the song Moon Rider, written by Paul and Ralph Colwell and Herbert Allen, performed by Up With People. In December 2011 Cernan appeared on the BBC's astronomy programme The Sky at Night in the episode entitled Last Man on the Moon. He appeared on another BBC programme in 2012. Answering questions on stargazing live by video link from Houston. Cernan's story of leaving the initials of his daughter, Tracy, written on a rock on the moon, was prominently mentioned in the 20th episode of the third season of Modern Family. The story, and Cernan's relationship with his daughter in general, was later adapted into Tracy's song by pop rock band No More Kings. A number of fictional characters have been described as being the last man to walk on the moon. These have included Steve Austin of the novel Cyborg by Martin Caidin and Captain Spurgeon Tanner, a character in the film Deep Impact portrayed by Robert Duvall. In Magnificent Desolation, Walking on the Moon 3D, Cernan is voiced by Gary Sinise. Cernan's voice from the Apollo 17 mission was sampled by Daft Punk for the duo's 2013 album Random Access Memories, in the last track named Contact. Cernan's name is used as the name of a Twain ship, an airship capable of traversing parallel worlds, in The Long Mars, a science fiction fantasy novel by Sir Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. Physical description: weight, 190 pounds, height, 6 feet 0 in, hair, grey, eyes, blue. Gallery. See also, List of spaceflight records, Cernan Earth and Space Center, a public planetarium on the campus of Triton College in River Grove, Illinois named in Cernan's honor. References. External links. Official website of Captain Eugene Cernan. Cernan's official NASA biography. Last Man on the Moon, Eugene Cernan flies the Windows-based Eagle Lander 3D simulator. Eugene Cernan at the Internet Movie Database, Astronautics Biography of Eugene Cernan, Space Facts Biography of Eugene Cernan, Cernan at Encyclopedia of Science, Cernan at Spatiacs, Cernan at International Space Hall of Fame, Eugene Cernan Interview on the Sky at Night, Check-6.com, the 1971 crash of Eugene Cernan's Hello, Eugene Cernan Oral History, Houston Oral History Project, February 5, 2009. Accessed April 19, 2015. Appearances on C-SPAN.